Welcome to Which Side Do You Want, where we talk all things tennis. I'm your co-host, Ruffin Thornton, and I'll be joined by my good friend, James Skinner.
Unlike most tennis podcasts, we cover hot topics, from the lawns to the concrete, from the pros to the park, and all things in between. Welcome to Which Side Do You Want?
Well, welcome back, tennis fans, as we are nearing the end of another year where a lot of things happened in the world of tennis this year. So, James, it's been a minute. How have you been since the last time we were here in the wonderful studios at Another Wave Media?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, Ruffin. How are you doing, brother?
I am doing great. It's the holiday season.
It's the holidays.
So,
tis the season.
Tis the season. So we definitely are having a good time. I was lucky enough to have family. How about you?
Yeah, that's so far so good. I told you about that daughter is a debutante now. So I was a proud papa that night.
Cool.
And but yeah, so far so good. The holidays are coming through. This is the second post-COVID. Well, I keep saying post-COVID. COVID is not post.
Yeah, because it never left.
COVID is still with us. It is still out there. So, but this is a period of time. More and more people are venturing out.
Right.
As long as we do what we're supposed to do, get the vaccines and watch yourself watch yourself in certain situations, we should be okay.
Yeah.
I always go with the science on this one. Let's follow what the doctors say.
I think so, especially with the way the holidays usually, with the colder temperatures in North America, we always have to worry about the flu and other airborne diseases. And COVID is just like one of those airborne diseases that we'll probably be dealing with from now on. So
it's a part of us, and let's just do what we're supposed to do so we can keep it at bay.
Yeah. So, well, that's good. I'm glad to hear everything's going well with you. I got to see those pictures of the debutante.
I'm going to send you those pictures,
man.
Yeah, and we got to check out the ad, too. The ad is nice.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you reminded me of that. I forgot about it.
You did the best job on the ad. I think your ad turned out tight. It was really good.
Well, thank you. I would have thought that you guys would have made some changes. But anyway, we digress here.
No.
So let's get back and let's really start some tennis, since it's been a couple of weeks since we last were here. So this is normally where our segment is about this week's tournaments. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however, if you're a tennis player, you're unfortunate because you don't have any tennis to really talk about. But there are no tournaments this week.
Right.
So, however, some of our favorite players are taking a well-deserved rest.
Right.
And they really, really, really need that.
It's been a long year.
And a lot of the players end up going to tropical places, like, for instance, Belinda Bencic. She was part of the Billie Jean King Cup winning Switzerland team. She ended up going to one of those places. Let me make sure I get this right. The Honolulu Ba Atoll. If you know where that is in the world, this is a spot in one of the most exotic, remote locations in the world. It's in the Maldives. If you don't know where it is, look it up on a map. The Maldives is a small island atoll south of Sri Lanka in Asia, in the Indian Ocean, and it is gorgeous. If you look at her Instagram pages, she looks like she's having a blast.
And
she's deservedly so.
That's right. She's earned it, and she can definitely afford the trip.
Yeah, I know.
She can afford the trip.
Yeah. And other players end up doing small tours and exhibitions, like our fan favorite, Rafael Nadal. He and his boy Casper Ruud, they ended up going to Brazil, during the off season. So, a lot of times, even though the top players are the players that we want to see, some of those smaller players like Casper will actually tour with a Rafael Nadal or Roger or whoever, and do fan favorite exhibitions just to say, hey, we appreciate you. Thanks for coming out and supporting us.
Yeah.
So
it helps you keep sharp too.
Yeah,
also.
It does.
Not too long of a break.
Not too much of a step down, lag in your game.
Right.
But because the last part of that is, you've got those others who have not reached the level of a Nadal or even a Casper Ruud.
They're playing.
They're not necessarily playing, but they're practicing. They're changing. They're making changes to their games. They're getting prepared. They're preparing for the 2023 season. And I'm not saying that they don't have some satellite tournaments in the off season.
They got 125s out there that they're playing. That's why I was saying that they are playing because they're getting points. I will just bring up when we talk about the women. There's a young American that was out there playing. starting to make some headway coming up now. And
Right.
playing those 125s, man, getting those points.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's where these players in the off season, and again, we mentioned this before. Tennis doesn't really have a
Right.
full length off season
No.
like a lot of the major sports, where they have 6-7 months off. Baseball has what, November
Right.
through April before they really start.
Exactly.
Spring training may start in March, but they've got 3-4 months. Same thing with football. This is why we love football. Football goes from September or August, well, let's say late July, through January now. And then you've got from January on to July.
Mhm.
So, they've got, mini camps and things like that in
Right.
between. But for the most part, they've got 4 to 5 months off.
Yeah.
Well, tennis players don't have
don't.
that.
Yeah.
So this is when they'll use the later parts of November and December to prepare for the next season, to make changes to their game, to
Right.
improve their stamina, to
Right.
take mental changes or strategical changes to their game, so that they can do better in the upcoming season. So that's when the benefit of not having a tournament comes into play.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's always a thing, and your body needs to rest. You can't
Needs to
play
rest.
24/7. I know when I was playing on the regular basis. And fans, James and I are no longer playing as much as we used
No.
to. But when
Or
I
as
was,
much as we'd like to.
definitely. Club memberships notwithstanding. When I was playing, I took the month of December off. I may have played my last indoor tournament match in the beginning of December, but then I would take a week or 2 weeks off, and then I would specifically train. And I remember a lot of my competitors would say, "Man, you look like you're in mid-season form." I'm like, "Well, yeah, because I took the time off." You and I have discussed this in the past. We have the love. We have the love for the sport. So, but even when you have the love, you can, like a job, you can get tired of it.
Sure.
So if you take that time off, just like the pros need to, you take that time off, you get that love back because you miss it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And that's
true. That's true.
that's one of the things that a lot of these players, if they don't have those 125 tournaments to play in, they're taking the time to first recharge, relax, and then make some changes for the upcoming season.
Right.
So
that's true. That's an excellent point. When you're at the top, you have more options to do that. And if you're in the top 50, you can do that.
Sure.
But if you're down, trying to break in, then you have to use that time another way as well.
Yeah.
So, but I think you're right. You need a break. You need to not only let your body heal, let your mind heal.
Absolutely.
This has got to be the most nerve-wracking sport that you can play, because it's an individual sport, and you're out there on that court by yourself.
Mano y mano.
Mano y mano. And so you can't blame it. No, I missed that. Well, my teammate didn't do it. No, it's on you.
Right.
You
Absolutely.
did that. Yeah.
But that's what we acknowledge the fact that these players take the time off to acknowledge and rest and relax and improve, and that's what we all want to do.
Exactly.
So since we're talking about 2022, let's talk about this year as a review. We saw the rise of a new generation finally.
Yes.
With 2 new number ones. So I'll start out with you. Let's talk about our number one players as we acknowledge some of the changes and some of the things that happened in 2022 with our number one players. Which side do you want? Do you want the men's or the women's?
I can jump with the men today.
Okay.
So you're right. Speaking about youth was served this year, and this is the way the sport works. As certain players start to go into the twilight of their careers, then you have these younger players who are emerging now to take over the realm as the new leaders of the sport.
Right.
And we definitely saw that on the men's side with young Carlos Alcaraz.
Right.
Incredible season. He finishes the year number 1 in the world.
Yeah.
19 years old, people. 19 years old. Get used to him. He's going to be here for a while.
He's going to be.
He's got the skills to pay the bills. And
Absolutely.
I was just amazed by him early on, and we've talked about him often, I know, but there's a lot to talk about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And
we may have to spend the whole episode on,
Yeah,
on him and our other number one player when we get a chance to talk about her. So any other thing, let me ask you this. What one thing have you noticed that makes Alcaraz deserving of being number one?
Okay, well, he has the skill set.
Right.
That's without doubt. He's an incredible athlete.
Right.
This guy could have probably been a good anything. He could have been a soccer player. He could have been whatever. Just in control of his body.
Right.
He makes shots that are just incredible. He's quick, just one of the foot speed, ridiculous. And so those are the things. That's kind of like the given almost, because most of these players. But for me, that makes him stand out at 17 or 18, 19 years of age is what's between his ears, man.
Right.
The mind, he is not, we talk about these young kids, and that's what sets them apart, is that they're not intimidated by their opponents, the moment, the place they're in. They're playing the best players in the world, and they embrace it.
Right.
They don't run away from it. They're not afraid. And like you talk about how they always come out there expecting to win. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And that's to me is the difference, because you rarely do you see that in young players. It usually takes them that moment to realize, hey, I'm here, and get used to the being on the tour and playing at top level all the time, having to always be on the top of your game. They came in there understanding that.
Yeah.
And Alcaraz leads the field on that. And he's still not even 20 years old. It's just phenomenal. We like I always say, I'll go back to this and I'll just say one more time. When he first came out, everybody was saying it's going to be the new Alcaraz, and I thought that was so unfair. I just like, man, don't put this on the kid.
You mean Nadal?
I mean, I'm sorry, the new Nadal. That Freudian slip. That he was going to be the new Ruffin Nadal,
right?
And obviously, it didn't bother him. I think he took that and said, "Okay, I'm gonna show you. Not only am I going to be the next Nadal, but I'll probably be better than Nadal, because he is more athletic, if you can believe that. But he is, and so his upside is
tremendous. You're right.
It's tremendous, and he has all that. He has all those tangibles and intangibles that it takes to be number one for quite some time, or be in the top, of the world at that level of tennis for a while.
Yeah, I can wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, and it's so funny. He's number one, and who's number two?
Oh, Nadal, you're right.
Rafa Nadal, 36 years old, number two in the world.
Yeah. The oldest number two in the world.
The oldest number two in the world.
History of the sport. Yeah.
What can you say? I mean, while we are putting all this on Alcaraz, and deservedly so, but we don't know where he's going to be in 10 years. Yeah. Right now, if things go the way they're going, he'll be there. Rafa's proven himself.
Oh, sure.
Proven himself. He came out like an Alcaraz when he was 16, 17 years old. I remember, and first person I remember, Carlos Moya first. I remember him talking about this kid. They asked about, who is this kid you're practicing with? And he said, he's going to be a champion, And we see the long hair and the long shorts and everything. And he was that kid too. But I just see something else in Alcaraz. I don't know what it is, but he's got it, man.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about on the women's side, the number one player on the women's side. Some of the same characteristics that Mr. Carlos Alcaraz has, our number one women's player, who again just as young, a couple years older, not yet years, couple of months older, in Iga Swiatek. She has shown at the beginning when she took over number one after Ashley Barty retired after winning the Australian Open. She rose to number one by default.
Right.
And I had my doubts initially, not understanding all of the things that she could do and maintain, that she's shown that she's deserving of being a number one. But throughout the whole season, she has shown that she has some of the same characteristics that Carlos has. She's a phenomenal athlete. Mm-hmm. She really can cover the court just like Carlos can. She actually has that on switch where she can be extremely offensive like Carlos can, but she can also defend just as well as better than anybody else. That's what separates her from being number one versus the number two player, who I believe is Elena.
Ons Jabeur.
Oh, Ons Jabeur. That's right. I'm sorry. Ons Jabeur. Okay. So, but still, Ons Jabeur, she's a great player, but she doesn't have quite the same arsenal of weaponry that Iga has. And that's why she's deserving. She's definitely a deserving, and more in the sense of another great player, Serena.
Yeah.
Serena definitely could turn it on and off. She had that all out offensive weaponry. And if she needed to be, she could be the best defender on the court as well. And that's what Iga has.
Yeah.
So we got to acknowledge both the new young players as the rise of the youngsters, rise of a new generation. And they're certainly deserving of the number one titles and being the forefront of this new generation that we're looking forward to seeing come 2023 and beyond.
No doubt. No doubt.
So with that said, let's talk about some of the rise of the American players. Let me leave it up to you now as well. What do you want? Which side do you want? Do you want the men's or the women's?
Well,
we just want to keep it to two players.
I'm just going to mention because it's short with the men.
Right.
But we have an American in the top 10.
Right.
It's just that is, and we talked about that before too. But Taylor Fritz, he's there, number 9.
Right.
And I just want to say that this young man, I mean, he is another one of those players who worked hard, works hard at his game, and he was a top-ranked junior. Everybody had all these expectations of him early on in his career. He was getting Grand Slam junior titles and that sort of thing. So he had the rep coming up in there that he was going to be a mover and a shaker.
Right.
But then he had that leveling off period where it was because remember, you're coming into from the juniors to the pros is night and day. And so he took his hits here and there, but he stayed consistent and he kept working on his game. The guy never went away. And, he's a father now and all these things. So he has put himself together at his, and he's not that old. Was he 27, 26 maybe?
No, I don't think he's that old.
He may not even be that old. So I knew he's
Taylor's in his
middle 20s,
mid
24
20s.
maybe?
He may be 24.
Okay.
He's only a year or two older than Francis.
Okay, then exactly, because they played juniors and stuff together.
Right.
So that just tells you, his upside is up.
Right.
And he's at that point now where I think he expects to come on the court to be competitive and to win.
Right.
Will he have a Grand Slam title? That's the thing we're going to look for. Will he? And that's a different animal. It's can you hang in there for 2 weeks, a fortnight, playing the very best of the best of the best.
Right.
That's a tough order for anybody, and that's why there are very few people who have Grand Slam titles. We look at the top 10, and you have who has a Grand Slam title on there? 1, 2, 3, 3 people, 4. All right, that's it.
Yeah.
Out of 10. And and it drops off after that. That's the most you're gonna find. So it's a certain area for the reserve. Who can else crack in there, and get one? He's probably our best hope at this moment. We don't know what's gonna happen this year, but and so just another quick shout, even though he's not in the top 10, but Francis Tiafoe comes in at number 19.
Again, he's on the rise, and we're acknowledging some of the American players.
Exactly, on the rise. He got 2,000 points that got him. Hey, he got in. He's in the top 20.
Right,
and I think that's phenomenal for him. He had a great year. This year.
He did.
He really did.
Yeah, and we should expect more from Francis because he has the tools.
Yes.
He believes in himself. We talked about it in one of the previous podcasts where Francis got a mental boost by being the decider between
that's right,
in the Laver Cup.
Cup,
where he took out
he and
two two legendary
Yes, sir.
players, you
He
know,
and
playing doubles.
He and FAA. And remember, we talked
Right.
about it, said, we both said that it might fall on his racket.
Right.
And of course, it needs some things to happen. And FAA doing his job.
Right.
And but it did fall on his racket. And
Right.
he performed, man. He met the moment.
Even if it's not his specialty,
Right.
you know, he beat him in doubles.
Sure.
Beat Roger and Rafa in doubles in a match that mattered.
Yep.
And, you know, unfortunately, it was the last match for Roger, but, you know, still,
Yeah.
you know, the pressure was on. The world had never won.
Never
You know,
won.
and now he's the reason that the world has gotten their
That's right.
first win.
The
So
monkey is off their back.
the world's
Boy,
back. I
finally.
know.
All right, well, and I'll flip that. I just wanted to mention those, so that's why I'm going to call them in just to let us, everybody, we got American in the top 10.
Oh yeah,
It's been
absolutely.
So long.
It's been a minute.
Been a
you know,
long-
and it, you know that
wow.
that rested with the players after Andy Roddick. It rested on the shoulders of John Isner.
Yes.
I don't know who else would have been in the top 10 before France. I mean, before.
I think we cut that off, man.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
No one
since
else-
Roddick, it's only been Isner.
Yeah.
Man, that's been a long time.
And that's why, I always tip my hat when he hangs his racket up. I mean, he fought in there after Roddick. He came in and everybody thought that he might be able to emerge, but it's tough. It's just
Right.
hard. And I think Roddick just had some skill sets that he didn't have.
Sure.
That allow him to stay up in there longer and to get that Grand Slam, that elusive Grand Slam title.
Yeah, before Roger and the rest took hold.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Oh yeah, that was a tough time.
Yeah.
That's a hard time. I feel bad for Roddick, man. If had Roger Federer not been a factor, he would have had a couple of Wimbledon titles,
Probably.
without a doubt, and other U.S. Open titles.
Probably more than likely.
But Federer was stingy.
Yeah.
Especially on the grass.
The big
Grass
three
of
have all
Wimbledon.
been through
Yeah.
it.
Nadal was stingy on the dirt.
Right.
And, it's just hard to break in.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about some of the rise of the American women, and we'll keep our focus to just two.
Okay.
We'll talk Jessica Pegula. Again, she's the number 3 player in the world, and our girl Coco. Got to tip our hats. Finally getting there. She's making those steps little by little. She's improving year after year after year. Hopefully, she can get a breakthrough sometime this year.
Yeah.
But again, we gotta first acknowledge the hard work that these players have done. Both Coco and Jessica
Pegula.
have done wonders for American tennis, especially now that Serena has officially retired, although she kind of hinted that maybe it's not over yet.
Right.
But that's just a tease.
Yeah.
So but for right now, Pegula, Coco, they're carrying the flag for the American women.
Yes, they are.
And from the Billie Jean King Cup, they're not the American women are set, because we talked about it before. Madison, another perennial top 10er and certainly top 15 player is right there. But
she's 11 now.
Right. But Jessica and Coco are right now the flag bearers for our women, and we got to acknowledge their accomplishments. Again, both of them were in the year-end tournament. Both of them had opportunities to represent the United States at the year-end tournament of the Billie Jean King Cup. So they worked hard to get to where they are, and we only wish them much more success going forward because, like I said, Jessica's a hard worker. She may not have the most skills physically on the tour, but she has been a grinder.
Yes.
She's smart on the court. She's one of those players that doesn't beat herself.
Right.
You have to beat her. So she's one of those pros.
Mm-hmm.
And then Coco, she's got the world of talent in front of her. Once she starts to become a little more offensive to challenge the likes of a Iga Swiatek, I think she will have a monumental change in her outlook to what she can do on the court.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all looking forward to what the potential that Coco has.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
look forward to some of the changes that both of those players and the rest of the American women as a whole have going into 2023.
Exactly.
So let's acknowledge briefly, because we could talk all day, just the Grand Slam winners, because we've got 4 Grand Slams. But let's just talk about real quick each of the main tournaments, starting with the Australian Open. In fact, I'll start out with the Australian Open. Ashley Barty, now retired,
Yes.
we acknowledge her win as one of the first Australian women in a long time since I think Yvonne Goolagong to win the Australian Open.
Yeah. Either Goolagong or Margaret Court, one of them.
Well,
I think Goolagong was, she would have probably,
Yeah, I think Margaret won her last tournament in either 71 or 60 in the late 60s.
Okay,
fans, if you could, Google us on that one, let us know.
Right.
But and unfortunately for us tennis fans, after a few weeks after her win, she decided to retire. So we don't get a chance to see her play anymore. Right. But we wish her all the best. But we acknowledge her win at the Australian Open. As well as on the men's side, the tournament we didn't see coming for this Hall of Famer.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Rafa won the Australian Open. So, we could do a whole podcast, or we could do a whole series on this guy.
Oh my gosh, incredible career.
Yeah, incredible career. And again, he wasn't expecting this win, but he always puts it out there. When he beat what's his name from Russia?
Medvedev.
Medvedev thought, this guy's going to get tired. Nope.
No, he didn't.
Nope. He is the definitive Energizer Bunny on the court.
It.
And it showed at the Australian Open. He wouldn't quit. And I think he started to show signs of injury even at the Australian Open, but those injuries never stop him. As long as he's out there swinging a racket, that's why he won it. So
he always has an injury.
Right.
That I'll never forget when that conference, and they were talking about when he had it on his, I think it was his knee but anyway, they were saying that, you're hoping to be pain free. So I'm never pain free.
Right.
Injuries, I just learned how to deal with the injuries, but he's always, and most, all the players.
Right.
There's nobody playing who's not feeling any pain.
Sure.
Everybody's hurting somewhere. They got something that they're learning to deal with or working on it. That's why physios make so much money.
Yeah,
because you got to keep that guy
body limber
keep that body up
in tip top shape.
Yeah, but just that he's doing it and still doing it at 36.
Right. Yeah,
incredible.
Like I said, the Australian Open was not a tournament that he was really expecting to win.
Yeah.
But let's also acknowledge the next Grand Slam in the year, the French Open.
Yes.
Iga won her second Grand Slam. So, again, this kind of cemented her being number one in the world. Yeah. So, it was appropriate or, apropos that she would win her first Grand Slam being the number one player in the world. She met the challenge of all the pressure of being a number one while being the number one seed in the tournament. Yeah. So
incredible clay court player too. She's really, her game is
well suited
for clay. And she's going to be tough for a while.
Yeah,
she's going to be tough to beat. And we come back to the men.
Yeah. And on the men's side, this dude, we just said he's the Energizer Bunny. How in the world does he get to number 16?
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, Rafa wins another Grand Slam at the French.
At the French.
Again, they already got a statue of the man. What more do you need?
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, I said I know, but I think they need to name a court after him.
Oh, absolutely.
I think they will. But
they will.
I think they need to name a court after him, and
you can't say much more.
You can't say much
dude.
more about him.
I mean,
are you kidding me, man? He's the man.
He is the man.
Yeah.
So I'll let you take the last two.
Okay. Well, for the men, the Wimbledon. I'm sorry. We come back to England during the summer, and we're hats off to Novak Djokovic.
Right.
Who had a great match against Nick Kyrgios. So let me just real quick on Nick. Nick had an awesome tournament, and his game is so well suited for the grass. I mean, every aspect of his game, you think, man, grass. So, Djokovic, I think he mentally out-toughed him that
Oh,
game.
of course,
I
he
think
did.
it was all between his head. And Djokovic, with his experience in those situations, he was always able to edge a little fight, even though, Nick gave him some,
Oh yeah,
gave him some heat.
he was literally serving him off the
He
court.
was bringing the heat, but Djokovic's like, hey, you know what? I'm still here. You're not
Right.
gonna blow me up. And so I think that's what took him over, his experience. But if he wants to be a Grand Slam champion, I'm hoping that he said, I could have won this.
Sure.
I could have been a Wimbledon champion. And maybe that hunger will make him want to go for it even more.
Yeah, we're hoping. Once you get a taste of it, now let's see if he really liked that on his palate. So
Exactly.
we'll see.
Now, going to go into the women.
Sure.
You can take the women on this one.
So again, on the women's side, surprise there, Elena Rybakina.
Yeah, Rybakina.
She just had an excellent tournament, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I mean, she's got the tools just like an Iga, but she's not really as consistent. I mean, she's a top 10 player, but there's some aspects, the mental aspects of some of the of her and her counterparts are not always there. You can see the greatness, but will we see it week in and week out?
Right.
That's, like I said, with Iga, I had my doubts, and Elena, same thing. She can be and beat anyone at any point in time, but for the Wimbledon fortnight, she did. She showed that she had the medal. Did she keep it throughout the year? No.
Right.
But we still wish her and acknowledge her win at Wimbledon.
I know.
So she gets a lifetime membership to Wimbledon.
That's right. She's a member now. But there are a lot of people who are writing about her and saying that, a lot of people saying she was a flash in the pan, because what she's done since then, and she's too young.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know what this young lady's going to be doing. When we go in that level. We don't know what this young lady's going to be doing in the future with her game, who's working with her. That's part of that pro level.
Yeah.
You're going to, once you get to a certain thing, and you'll talk about, because you made some great comments before about another young ingenue who came on the scene with the bang, who hasn't really done a lot since.
Right.
But they're still working on their game.
Yeah.
And that you are playing against, once again, the best of the best of the best.
Right.
And you come out there, when they first don't know you, okay, you'll get them off guard. But then they're going to come back and they're going to look at your game. They're going to break you down. They're going to see where your weaknesses are. And you better believe it, with the acumen, the tennis acumen that these people have, they're going to figure out how to, And so then that's up to you to come back and improve your game.
Yeah.
Those things where they find that you're weak, strengthen them, and that's what makes you a top pro for, a few years instead of a tournament here or something like that. So I think that's what she's going through. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's a new year, coming up. And so we'll see how that goes.
Let's see if she can bring it back, because she'll be a defending champion. So the telltale sign will be
got a lot of points to defend.
how many points how she does well defending those points. You're right.
Yeah.
And then the final tournament of the year, the final Grand Slam of the year, I should say.
The U.S. Open, our home turf. Alcaraz, that was his coming out party.
That was his coming out party. Absolutely.
The kid is here.
Right.
He said, "I'm real," and it was. He just put on. He showed all of the things that all the gifts and skills that he has. Man.
Yeah.
He was in tight spots. He pulled himself out.
Yeah.
He
took tight
yes,
matches.
he did. And I mean, he just relentless. I'm not going down.
Right.
And having fun the whole time.
That was we were both there this year, and that was one of the things that it struck me as from our seats. I was like, he looks like he's having a ball.
He's having fun.
Win, lose, or draw, he's out there having a blast and beating people and or we say chewing bubblegum and taking names, and it's all out of bubblegum.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So
it was his coming out party.
Right.
And he's here, folks.
Yeah.
He's here. So tennis fans, hey, brace yourselves.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be a ride. And we got a couple other young guns who gonna getting ready to challenge him.
Yeah.
We will see. It's gonna be exciting. But before we go on, I'll let you go take the ladies, Ruffin. one little honorable mention here. He did not win a title, but he was in 2 finals, and that's Casper Ruud, man.
Oh, yeah.
And so for Ruud, he not only that, he got to finals of the French Open, and he got to the finals of the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
And that's usually one of those, if you can win like either on clay and then hard, or grass and then hard, or even harder, some people think it's clay and grass. That says something about, you know, the type of player you are, that you can play on those multiple surfaces and do well. And I gave him the nickname Casper the Ghost, because it seemed like when he came on the scene, he came out of nowhere. But he's not coming out of nowhere anymore. I mean, he's somebody to be dealt with. And so I just want to throw that in there. He got to the finals of 2 Grand Slams, which was incredible for him. Yeah. And that brought him, he's number 3 in the world.
Can't get a whole lot better.
No,
but
you cannot. 23 years old, 22, 23 years old.
And he doesn't have a bad practice partner either, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And Nadal, he's always practicing with Ruffin, so that's probably the mark of how good he will be.
Yeah, and can I say one more thing? That I always am, the tennis they have things, they're like protocols and all kinds of little things you do to the game. That I always think are fascinating. But one of the things is when a top pro calls a younger player to practice with them, that is like an honor for one thing.
Sure.
But it's an opportunity. When they select you, that tells you something about what type of player you are.
Yeah, that veteran player knows you have potential and you can challenge them, which means that they're trying to, here's the insight on that is they're trying to get a little bit of your game now before you come out of nowhere like Casper did.
That's right. You know, that's right. So. And it's just like, and you hear about players turning down opportunities. That to me is insane.
Like I know.
If Rafa wants you to come to Mallorca to practice with him, I'm packing my bags. If I got to swim, I'm getting there. Or if Roger Federer wants you to come and practice with him, come on. And,
absolutely.
And most players that take advantage of that, they reap the benefits of it. They come back, and it's just you get a whole new perspective of how to work out, how you take care of yourself. Because and that's another thing, the beauty of some of those top players is the fact that they give back to these younger players and they tell them, like, hey, this is what you need to be doing.
Right.
This is how you need to be conducting yourself, how you practice, how you take care of your body, how you do all of this. And that makes them better pros.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have some stories about players who turned down opportunities, but you know that's not this podcast.
No,
maybe in the future
we'll do that. But
yeah, that's great. You know, that's a good point. You know, Casper being a practice partner for Rafa is definitely helping him.
Yes.
Just helping him.
Oh, jeez.
You know, but you know, we digress here. And our final acknowledgement for Grand Slam winners is again Iga Swiatek. She's just reinforcing and proving that she's deserving of the number 1 player. In fact, she was voted a Player of the Year for 2022, and deserving. She had the most. She had the most wins on tour this year. 2 Grand Slams. You know, she took over the number 1 slot. You know, some people felt like I did that it was given to her. But she's proven that she's deserving of it.
She's deserving, You
know, so like to acknowledge that. So our Grand Slam winners. So for our next part of acknowledgments for our year-end, we're going to just quickly talk about our year-end champions. You know, the year-end tournaments.
Yep.
We had the WTA finals and the ATP finals. So let's talk. Which side do you want? Do you want to talk briefly about the WTA champion or the ATP champion?
Well, I'll tell you what, you're going to take the WTA and I'll go with that.
Okay. Well, Caroline Garcia, French player, again, another player on the women's side that has had loads of potential. The French players, French Federation has been putting out a lot of really good players. Some of you maybe remember Amelie Mauresmo, Mary Pierce, even though she's an American transplant. The French Federation has been putting out a lot of good players, maybe not at the top of the game, but still quality players on the women's side. And Caroline Garcia fought tooth and nail to get to where she is, and she surprised a lot of players by winning the WTA finals, So we got to acknowledge her achievement and her accomplishment. I think one of her biggest accomplishments during the year was not a Grand Slam. She had impressive, what I want to say, showings in all of the Grand Slams, specifically later in the season. But her biggest win up until the WTA finals was probably the Western and Southern in Cincinnati. And she came, I don't want to say she came out of nowhere, but she became the hot player of the summer. In fact, I believe she may have won the U.S. Open series because of that Western and Southern Open win. So, but, we acknowledge her accomplishment as she's a first-time WTA year-end champion, as well as the men's side. No, that was her first one, but not on the men's side. I'll let you take that.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. Well, not funny, but it's when you play the end of the year. Your expectation is the person that was number one during the season, he's going to win it. And
right.
Not really.
No.
And really, if you think about it, who's played more tennis? Probably that person who was number one most of the year. And the toll it takes on your body and you're tired, fatigued, and the pressure that's on you to be number one all the time. And all of that weighs on you. So when you come to the end of the year, and everybody else is like, a lot of these players, they're human beings. So they're thinking about, oh man, what should I be? I wish I'd be with my family. I got kids now, or I got whatever. I got a new house. I got this. And so they may have, for that instance, they may drift off and not be 1,000% focused on the tennis like they should. So that always ends up somebody winning that you might not have thought was going to win the tournament. And so we have a finals that comes up, and of course, we would expect, the name players, Novak Djokovic, and the people we thought. And I kind of thought Djokovic was going to come in there and take it. I just said, well, he's a veteran player. He's been there, and I think, everybody else is not. And I thought that experience would carry him over. But it did not.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then you look at, well, who was the hottest player on the tour? Well, that's Carlos Alcaraz. But then it doesn't work out for him either.
Right.
And so then we come out, well, who comes in, who's playing? Then you look at the tangible of who's the most consistent player in that tournament.
Sure.
In who keeps, plays in there. And then who comes up? The ghost.
Yeah.
And play very well, played consistently, showed off his skill, and hung in there mentally,
Yeah.
And so, for Ruud, I want to see
Ruud or or we're talking about Novak, because Novak won the year end.
Yeah, I'm saying, I'm talking about, he played Ruud and they played in the finals.
Right, okay.
And so I was saying that I would like to see, because for me, I think your experience whereas in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the edge.
Yeah.
That was the edge that got him over. It wasn't that he played the best. He really didn't play his best.
No.
I thought Ruud played a better tournament. But being there, that experience, and I said, well, and I thought, well, he's not going, but then he comes back. And so that's why, he was the GOAT. He's the person we titled as the greatest of all time. If y'all check our previous podcast, when we did our GOAT series. And he just does what he does.
Yeah.
And this man, I don't know how long he's going to be playing a pro. I feel like he's going to be competitive and in the mix for another 5 years. That's my opinion.
Right.
Just the way he takes care of himself, and just an incredible physical specimen. And he's in his mid-30s now. So he still has, he's got some time on the clock based on how players are playing now.
Yeah.
And so, I just felt like the GOAT did his thing. And that was a great tournament. But also, too, we have the changing of the guard, so to speak.
Right.
And he was the last one. I mean, he's the last of this consistently winning. Nadal had a great year. Will
Mhm.
Nadal have as good a year next year? He's the injuries and stuff we don't know.
Yeah.
He'll still be in the mix.
Sure.
But if I had to put my money on somebody right now, it would still be the Joker.
Yeah.
I would still put him on that he's still going to be competitive. He'll still take a Grand Slam title next year.
Yeah, Australia.
Yeah, and he'll be in the conversation for another few years. So yeah, our hats off to him. I mean, hats off to this guy. Controversies following him, with all of that, with the COVID thing,
I know.
Yeah, but he still comes out, and when it's time to focus on the court, he doesn't let it deter him. He goes in there, he zeroes in on what he has to do, and he stays in the mix as far as his tennis playing ability. He can separate the two. He's not gonna let anything get to him, and so hats off to him, year-end champion, to go.
Yeah. Well, now let's be clear. In our GOAT episode, we did refer to Rafael Nadal as our GOAT based on objective metrics.
Exactly.
But and
that was
Nadal,
2 different periods of time.
Right. So again, if you go back and archive some of our episodes when we were on Spotify, we determined that even though the fan favorite was Roger, the metric was Nadal had won based on number of Grand Slams, Master Series tournaments,
time at number one, his record against the top
players and his contemporaries. But since that time, even though Rafa has distanced himself with Grand Slams by winning 2, Novak is right behind, and he wins in every other metric against his compatriots. Been number 1, year in number 1, as well as top time at number 1.
Sure.
But we digress. But he's still considered ultimately it's outside of the Grand Slam difference.
Mm-hmm.
We can arguably say that Novak is the true GOAT of tennis. But that's for another time.
Yep.
So we're nearing the last thing that we want to talk about with our year-end acknowledgments. So the last thing that I want to talk about is the acknowledgments of the year-end team competitions worldwide.
Yeah.
So we have 2 main ones, not the Laver Cup notwithstanding. And the new, do you remember, what's the name of the new world competitions will start in January?
Right. It's the world, not the World Cup, but it's the World Championship.
Yeah, I can't think of the name of it, but we'll come back to it maybe in our next podcast.
Yeah, new team competition. With the WTA and the ATP competing together.
A little bit different than the Hopman Cup, which is played in one location.
In one tournament. This is
This is spread out over multiple cities in Australia.
And it's more of a team because you don't have more than just
a team.
2 players.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You actually have a team of both men and women's players. But we're going to talk about some of the final, the champions of the main competitions that we've traditionally had, the Billie Jean King Cup and the Davis Cup. So which one you want to take?
Well, guess we'll go with the who do I want to take this? I would say I'll go with the Davis Cup.
Okay.
And you can take the WTA. I mean the Billie Jean King BJK Cup.
You want me to go first?
You can go first.
Okay. All right. So let's tip our hats off to the Billie Jean King Cup champion who came out of nowhere. First of all, let me acknowledge the fact that I really do like this new format.
Yeah, I do too.
It used to be played throughout the year, just both the Billie Jean King Cup and the Davis Cup in a similar format. Now it is played in segments. You have a world group, and then you have group 1, group 2, and then subgroups underneath them. And by realigning this calendar of tournaments for these world team competitions, it makes it much more favorable to the players.
Exactly.
So Switzerland is the women's Billie Jean King Cup, and they played a heck of a tournament.
Yeah, they did.
And it is a team tournament, 1 week long tournament played in, I forgot where it was this year, but it was supposed to have been in China, and they moved it to Texas.
Mm-hmm.
But Switzerland came out on top, and they played They put together a marvelous team led by Belinda Bencic, and their number 2 player in Switzerland, who was also more of a double specialist. But both of those players did double duty, playing all the singles and pairing up to play the doubles. And they only had one tie loss throughout the entire tournament. So that's amazing. They won their round robin group undefeated, or I should take that back. I think maybe Canada won in their group, in their round robin group. They only had one match loss in the ties, and they kind of smoked the competition. Which I thought, in our previous episode, I thought that the Americans team was going to have a really, really good shot at bringing the cup back to America. But the Swiss players said, nope, not so fast.
Not this time.
I got a reservation in the Maldives, but before I get there, I'm gonna make sure that
that's right.
that I earn it. So Switzerland, we tip our hats off to Switzerland because they did a marvelous job of winning the Billie Jean King Cup.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave it to you for the Davis Cup.
Well, this is also, it can be a game of first.
Right.
And when a country wins its first Davis Cup, that's memorable. And so we're just going to tip our hats to, Canada. Yeah. So Canada won its first Davis Cup, which is great. I like seeing new countries come in there and win. Outside, if it wasn't the United States, then I like somebody who's never won it before.
North America.
Exactly. North America. And and then led by Felix Aliaja-Asim, the new FAA, man, the number 6 in the world. And then his buddy, his partner in crime, Dennis the Menace.
Dennis
Shapovalov. And,
prettiest backhand, left-handed backhand you'll ever want to see.
It really is. And so they were consistent. And when it came down to getting the big wins, they did that. They had some big, huge wins in the final. And Shop in the last rubber, Shop got it done, and then he came back and FAA followed up with a big win, big singles win, and took it outright.
Yeah,
I mean the doubles was not even necessary, and so hats off to the Canadians. They celebrated big time and well deserved. And young players. These are also Shapovalov. His little roller coaster has gone up and down, up and down. I'm hoping that this will spur him on to realize, to get the confidence that, I have ridiculously good game.
Absolutely.
And he just has to put it together between his ears, you know, and that's for him. But he's got every shot in the book. The serve needs a little something on the serve. I think to get him some consistency on there to make that thing be a weapon. He needs to talk to FAA about getting that strengthening that serve because FAA went indoors and just went bananas.
He looked like one of those top acing servers like an Isner or an Evo.
Oh yeah,
because he was banging them.
He was banging them, and they went and took their first Davis Cup. And once again, we thought the United States would be in the mix, in the hunt. We got a good young team coming in there, and so maybe just the experience of being there. Now they say, hey, look, you know what, let's try to rekindle what we used to have here, and hopefully they'll be competitive. We got with Fritz and Tiafo if the players commit. If they commit, and I think having Rajiv Ram on the doubles is good. For us, a veteran doubles player, and so I think it's looking bright for us to eventually one day the U.S. Open will get to that final and maybe bring that cup back to the States.
Hopefully,
it'll be great.
And again, the new format is conducive
awesome,
to giving the players, once they commit, they don't have to commit to a year-long events. Playing in different, from going from surface to surface. You don't, sometimes you have no preparation in the old format. You'd play, let's say you play Wimbledon, and right after that you have a Davis Cup tie, and you might go to red clay in South Africa.
Exactly.
Big, really different conditions. So
because the country that you playing, they're going to put you on the surface they think they got a chance of beating you on, and instead of making a neutral, they're gonna and they've been turned Davis Cup ties that the country make the clay and they will water the clay
down.
Do whatever.
They do whatever that's going to give them an advantage.
Yes.
It's loud enough.
That's
as it
part
is.
of the lore of the Davis Cup, man.
Yeah, but so we acknowledge both the winners of the Billie Jean King Cup and the Men's Davis Cup, with Canada and Switzerland notwithstanding. Yeah. All right, so since it's the year end, let's also make one other addition. So this is our we're wrapping up the 2022 year, so we'd like to acknowledge you, the fans, for listening to us, and following us from our audio platform of Spotify. And transitioning with us to YouTube. So hopefully,
we appreciate the likes.
Yes,
we appreciate the likes and some of the nice comments that you've been making. Definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
Keep them coming.
I'd like to also thank our editor from Another Media, Another Wave Media, Mr. Daniel Robertson. He's been here. He made everything happen for us, and we continue. Our success is your success, and your success is our success. So I appreciate you helping us out and getting things turned around in a timely fashion.
That's right, Daniel's
and just to wrap things up, James, I got to acknowledge you for being here as my co-host here at the end of this year. This 2-year journey, and hopefully this is just the beginning of many, many more podcasts or whatever we have going forward. We've had a lifelong friendship.
Yep.
We'll continue to be lifelong friends.
That's right.
And hopefully this will just lead to bigger and better things. So I want to acknowledge you for being here with me on this podcast journey. So,
well, Ruffin, I appreciate that so much, man. It means a lot coming from you because we've known each other for a very, very long time.
40 years.
And so my respect for you as a person, as a tennis player, and it's an incredible game that we enjoy playing and enjoy talking about.
Yeah, it's a lifelong sport.
Yeah,
so,
and we got some things coming up too.
Right.
I'm just telling you, this year is going to be great, man.
I look forward to 2023.
I'm just very excited about some things we got in the pipelines, and I hope you guys come in and check us out.
Yes, please do.
Please do. Yeah.
Well, again, thanks everyone, and like we always say, go out there and hit a tennis ball.
Yeah, go out and play some tennis. You'll have a happy holiday season
and a Merry Christmas.